Hi, greetings. It's me, Dr. Paul Gerhardt, and this is the fourth video in our Essentials of Negotiation series. This video is going to be on strategy and planning. One analogy that I like to use is it's very difficult to get to New York City if you're in Seattle, Washington, without a plan. And in order to have a plan, it means you have to really understand what the goals are, and then you have to be able to figure the most efficient and effective way of getting there. And so hopefully this video helps you understand some of the strategies that the experts use when they're planning out successful negotiations. Without effective planning and goal setting, most negotiators can achieve their objectives. Without them, results occur more by chance than effort. You have to have goals, then a strategy, and then that's where the plan comes in. Although this model suggests a linear relationship, many begin midway in the sequence and work backward or forward until the steps are aligned. So let's talk about goals. The focus that drives a negotiation strategy really are the goals. To determine your goals, consider the following. Substantive goals could equal money. Intangible goals could equal winning. And then procedural goals are shaping the agenda. Effective preparation requires negotiators to do the following: list all goals that they wish to achieve, determine the priority among these goals, identify potential multi-goal packages, and evaluate possible trade-offs among the multiple goals. So these are things that with more minds and hands working on, you write down what you think is a priority or a goal, and then you could be able to evaluate what's most important, be able to lay out your plan. Direct effects of goals on choices of strategies. Wishes are not goals, especially in negotiations. Negotiators' goals may be linked to the other party's goals. There are limits to what realistic goals can be. And effective goals must be concrete, specific, and measurable. We often talk about that SMART model, right? If not, it'll be hard to communicate what you want, understand what the other party wants, and determine if an offer satisfies your goals. Goals can be intangible or procedural. Intangible goals might include maintaining a reputation or establishing a precedent. Procedural goals might be that the other negotiator must take at least 2 concessions to convince you of their sincerity. Criteria used to determine goals depend on your objective and your priorities among multiple goals. Indirect effects of goals on choice of strategy really are about short-term thinking affects your choice of strategy. We may ignore the present or future relationship with the other party in a concern for achieving a substantial outcome only. Goals requiring a substantial change in the other party's attitude may require long-range planning. Progress may be incremental and require a strong relationship with the other party. Relationship-oriented goals should motivate the negotiator towards a strategy valuing the relationship as much as the outcome. Relational goals tend to support the choice of a collaborative or integrative strategy. Let's talk about strategy versus tactics. How are strategy and tactics related? One major difference is that of scale, perspective, and immediacy. Tactics are short-term, adaptive moves designed to enact broad strategies, which in turn provide stability, continuity, direction for tactical behaviors. Tactics are subordinated to strategy. They are structured, directed, and driven by strategic considerations. Accommodations, competition, and collaboration. Accommodation really is as much of a win-lose strategy as competition. The imbalance is in the opposite direction. I lose, you win. Used to build or strengthen a relationship. They expect a future tit for tat accommodation from the other. Reciprocity may be the glue holding social groups together. For a long-term relationship, consider accommodative moves earlier to build trust and to be able to ask for some reciprocity in the future. There are drawbacks with accommodation, competition, and collaboration. Consequences if aptly applied blindly, thoughtlessly, or inflexibly. Distributive strategies create we-they patterns leading to the following: distortions in judgment about the other contributions and efforts, or distortions in perception of the other motives, needs, or positions. Integrative negotiators may be taken advantage of. They forget constituencies in favor of the process for its own sake. Accommodative strategies set a pattern of avoiding conflict. That's a precedent that is really hard to break. Efforts to restore balance may be met with resentment. Remember, it's difficult to follow any pure strategy, right? So, getting ready to implement the strategy is the planning process. So, define the negotiating goal. Define the major issues related to achieving the goal. Assemble issues, ranking their importance and defining the bargaining mix. Define the interests. Know your alternatives. Remember, we talked about BATNAs in the last video. Know your limits, including a resistance point. Analyze and understand the other's goals, issues, and resistance points. Set your own targets and opening bids. Assess the social context of the negotiation. Present the issues to the other party, substance and process. And consider your assumptions. One process can be used for both distributive and integrative. Factors beyond the table may affect strategizing. Negotiations will be one-to-one. And steps are linear. So, step number 1, defining the negotiation goal. Goals can be substantive or tangible. Goals can be psychological or intangible. Goals can be procedural. How will we get agreement? Goals can have both direct and indirect effects on the choice of strategy, and knowing your goals is the most important step in developing a strategy and executing them in the negotiation. Step number 2, defining the major issue related to achieving the goal. We have to really understand how issues affect the choice between distributive and integrative strategy. Single issues dictate distributive negotiations. Multiple issues tend to be more integrative negotiations. The choice of pursuing, claiming value, or creating value strategy is the negotiator's dilemma. Single issues can be made integrative, and multiple issues may remain distributive. Step number 3 is assembling the issues, ranking their importance, and defining the bargaining mix. Assemble all the issues into a comprehensive list. The combination of lists from both sides is the bargaining mix. Prioritization includes 2 steps: determining which issues are most important and which is less important. A simple way is to use rank order or group issues into categories. Another way is to weight issues by importance. Set priorities for both tangible and intangible issues. Specify a bargaining range for each issue in the mix. Determine whether the issues are linked or separate. If separate, they can be easily added or subtracted. If connected, settlement on one is linked to settlement on others. Step number 4, defining interests. Positions are what a negotiator wants. Interests are why they want them. Asking why questions helps surface values, needs, or principles like goal interest may be substantive, which is directly related to the focal issues under negotiation. Process-based are related to how the negotiators behave, and relationship-based are tied to the current desired future relationship. Interests may also be based on intangibles of the negotiation. Surfacing interests may be essential to understanding one's side of the position. Step number 5, knowing your alternatives. That's the BATNA we talked about in the last video. Good preparation requires establishing clearly 2 points. Your alternatives if this deal cannot be successfully completed, and your limits, the least acceptable offer that you will still agree to. BATNAs are the agreements negotiators could achieve and still meet their needs. Alternatives are very important because they define whether the current outcome is better than another possibility. The better the alternatives, the more power you have to walk away from the current deal and still have your needs and interests met. Step number 6, knowing your limits, including a resistance point. A resistance point is where you stop negotiations, as any settlement beyond this point is not minimally acceptable. A seller's resistance point is the least they will take for any item. A buyer's resistance point is the most they will pay for an item. Clear resistance point help keep people from agreeing to deals they later realize weren't very smart. Nobody should have regrets in this process. Analyzing and understanding the other party's goals, issues, and resistance point. Find a way to see the negotiation from the other party's eyes. The goal is to understand their approach to the negotiation and what they are likely to want. Then compare them against your own. Attempt to understand if the other party has the same goals as you. The more you learn about the other party's issues and what they bring to the table, the better you can predict how the process will go. Get information about their current interests, needs, through discussion, anticipating, asking, or researching. Understand the other party's limits to give you an idea of how far you can push them. In distributive negotiation, the other party may not disclose information, or they may represent their limits and alternatives in order to pressure you into a deal that's better for them. Step number 8, setting one's own targets and opening bids. There are many ways to get a target, but keep these principles in mind. Targets should be specific, but achievable and verifiable. Target setting requires proactive thinking about your own objectives. Target setting may require considering how to package several issues and objectives, and target setting requires an understanding of trade-offs and throwaways. Similarly, there are numerous ways to set an initial asking price. It may be the best possible outcome, an ideal solution, something even better than what was achieved the last time. It's easy to get overly confident and set an opening so unrealistic that the other party laughs, gets angry, or walks away before responding. Step number 9 is about assessing social context of a negotiation. When people negotiate in a professional context, there may be more than 2 parties. There may be more than 2 negotiators at the table. Multiple parties often lead to the formation of coalitions. Negotiators may also have constituents who will evaluate and critique them. There may be observers who watch and critique the negotiation. And negotiation occurs in a context of rules, a social system of laws, customs, common business practices, cultural norms, and political cross pressures. There's such a thing as a field analysis of negotiation. And what it really is that if you imagine yourself on a soccer field, for instance, envision the field and assess all the parties who are there. You've got people watching, you've got people on both sides, you've got people who are doing the evaluations, you've got people outside of the organization. So all of those different parties can affect the way that you perceive the negotiation if you're looking at them through each of their different lenses. So that's a big important thing to help you see the big picture and smaller picture as it relates to each of the different parties involved. And finally, step 10 is presenting issues to the other party, substance and processes. So presenting and framing issues, consider how you will present the case to the other negotiator, how facts support my point of view, how I can present the facts so that they are most convincing. Planning and process and structure, the context, what agenda should we follow? Consider scope, sequence, framing, packaging, and then the formula. Where should you negotiate? What time period of the negotiation? What might be done if negotiation fails? How we will keep track of what we agreed upon? Have we created a mechanism for modifying the deal if necessary? So, that, in a nutshell, are all the things that you should be thinking about in the strategy and planning processes of a successful negotiation. I hope you found some value in this video, and even more, I hope that you have a great day because only you get to choose how you feel about it. I'm Dr. Paul Gerhardt.